Hi, Steve Cooper, and welcome to another Rank Success podcast. This is where I share some food for thought. If you're thinking of going for promotion in the police service to Sergeant Inspector, Chief Inspector, and today's podcast I've called the Greasy Pole. Most of you listening to this will know what the greasy pole is, and if you don't, it's the notion of someone trying to climb a pole covered in grease, and some people do very well. They look like they're doing very well. They slide back down to the bottom again. It's a bit like one of those it's a knockout games, and then suddenly someone will get to the top. No rhyme nor reason for it. No one knows how. Maybe they've got stickier skin. Maybe they've got a different set of skills, but they get to the top. And it's just a kind of catch-all term, if you like, for going for promotion. But I just wanted to share some food for thought around that. Because it means different things to different people, and people experience it differently. So I've called it the Greasy Pole, and just as a reminder, if you do hear some creaking, it's not my knees. I'm bringing these podcasts to you from a little boat that I have on the moored on a pontoon on the south coast. So you'll hear seagulls. Occasionally the one will land on the roof. You'll hear a bit of creaking of the ropes as the boat is moving very slightly, and you may hear some other background noises, so just to put that in context. Okay, so the Greasy Pole. The other thing I wanted to mention was I appreciate your time is precious to you. Time is a really valuable resource, so if you just want to kind of shoot and take a quantum leap forward, you can download a digital toolkit which covers all of these issues I'm talking about in the podcasts. There's a 4-hour promotion masterclass video that I have, and there are lots and lots of free blogs and YouTube videos that you can actually have a look at to get match fit for your promotion opportunity very quickly. So then, the Greasy Pole. Well, what's the context of this? Well, the aim of a promotion selection process is generally to fill positions in the police service and to promote the best available people. Sounds really easy. Oh, and by the way, that's you. But it sounds really easy, fairly straightforward. But the people, the best available people as such, are usually the individuals whose depth and breadth of preparation underpins hard-won success. It's not easy getting promoted. A lot of people say it wasn't easy. For some people, it is easier than others because they've spent a hell of a lot of time preparing themselves, so sometimes months and months, and on occasion years, and in that experience they may well have had unsuccessful attempts. I would always ask people to focus on what they learned from that, what went well, what was their own reaction to that, and how has that helped them to progress. So that's the kind of underpinning coaching kind of elements or conversations or points that I would kind of raise from that, because that's about reflecting and coming back again better, coming back again stronger. You will notice, if you look at some of the testimonials, or lots of the testimonials on my website, that many people who choose to do this work, who listen to this kind of stuff, and who download digital guides or watch the masterclass or have some one-to-one coaching, they do tend to succeed first time. And I think that's because they commit to the work, they make that commitment to themselves to just get on with it. It's something they want to achieve, and they want the rest of their life ahead of them. So getting promotion, whether it's your first promotion, your second or your third, is literally about making a commitment to yourself to do the work necessary. And of course, I may be sounding like a scratch record because I have said this before, and also you already know it to be true, because if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably highly likely to be qualified, so having already passed your sergeant's or inspector's exam. So you know what it is. You've already made that commitment to yourself, or commitments should I say, because you've made first and foremost the commitment or the decision that you believe you've got what it takes to lead other people. And the second decision you made was to do something about it. So you made a commitment to study for months to get through the sergeant's and inspector's exam, and so here you are. So I'm preaching to the converted, really, in terms of making that commitment to yourself. So the Free Dictionary describes the greasy pole as being used to talk about someone's attempts to reach a more successful position in their career. So perhaps the Free Dictionary summarises what I've just said a little bit better than I've done. But you don't hear the term greasy pole so much today. But the economic and political drivers acting on the police service are constantly changing the landscape, and not least in the field of promotions. So I have blogged before, so you can whip across from this podcast if you want to make a note of the fact that I blog. I've blogged around the postcode lottery of police promotions, which alludes to the different processes that are in place across different forces. And there's a real mix and match approach today. So if you go for promotion in one force, the process may look basically quite similar, but the tests involved that you have to navigate are different, and in some cases markedly so. So a mix and match approach with selection processes across various forces, that includes supervisor recommendations, applications, psychometric tests, presentations, interviews, and or a mix and match of any of those. So hence why I called it the postcode lottery. It's a lucky or unlucky dip depending which force you're in. But as Einstein would say, that's nice to talk about, but you have to learn the rules of the game and what the test or the process is in your force, and then play them better than anybody else on the day. So whichever system's in place, some people will always be dissatisfied, and there's an army on either side of whether the police service get promotion right or wrong. In the interim, in the meanwhile, in the gap in between, thousands of officers get promoted. I have had people, I do speak with people, and certainly initially when we have a conversation, they want to use their valuable time, and it's their valuable time to kind of slag the system off, if you like, to complain about the system, rather than use that precious energy and time to focus on going forward, to getting better, because there are some things you can influence, and that's about getting better all the time, learning about the process you're going to face, learning about the competencies that you're going to be assessed against, and kind of revisiting or visiting for the first time for many people your values consciously, and doing some work around those and the shared values linked to policing and going for promotion and leadership and the challenges that will bring. So, as I say, there's plenty of people who'll be dissatisfied by that, and there's no one best system in place, but achieving a promotion is a significant challenge, and it should be. After all, it's a competition, and there's many more qualified people than there are vacancies. So, market forces. The aim, as I said at the beginning, is to select the best available people. So exposing people to things like presentations and interviews and other, role play exercises has its critics, and no doubt it's imperfect. But what it does allow is it allows assessors, it allows decision makers to get a look at you. Yes, it's a brief look, because perhaps they should pay a little bit more attention to your career path. But if it's one rule for all, i.e. you get 45 minutes in an interview and you may get a 10-minute presentation on top of that, you may also have to do a briefing on something, it does give them a fair look at you, and what they're assessing that they don't put down as a competency is your communication ability and skills. And it's not unreasonable to expect of a sergeant or an inspector that they're going to be able to brief somebody for 10 minutes, or brief a team, or brief a whole gymnasium full of officers before they disperse for a football match. It takes nerves, it takes bottle, it takes practice, and it takes a little bit of knowledge around structured briefing models and experience and knowledge all pulled together. And you can do all that work far before you get anywhere near an interview room. The reality is most people don't do that, and they certainly don't do it to the point where they're confident. And there's a magic word: confidence. So knowledge and experience equal confidence, and lots of cops have got experience, lots of it. So it's generally the knowledge gaps that I'm working with them to fill. It's generally the knowledge gaps that my digital guides, my Masterclass, and blogs, and one-to-one coaching kind of plug. It fills those gaps, those knowledge gaps, matched to your experience, helps you be more confident. And when you're confident, you can generally do things a whole lot better. Just have a think about something you're confident at doing, and generally, you may even be unconsciously competent. So, just take something as simple as driving, for instance. You're unconsciously competent. You can drive from A to B, and you can arrive and not really even know how you got there. So you're not really thinking consciously about what you're doing. You're thinking about lots of other things on the way. So you're unconsciously competent at doing something. So confidence kind of breaches different levels, and what we're talking about here is getting yourself match fit and confident to engage, to take part in, and to do your best in a promotion selection process. So as I said, there's no one best system, and it's a challenge, and it should be, and it's a competition, and there's lots more people who are qualified. Just because you got qualified, well done, by the way. I mean, that's a hard task as it is, and again, that's got the arguments, for and against it, a law exam, but it's a tough challenge to get there. So well done. But at the end of the day, all you've got is a ticket for a journey, a ticket for the bus ride. The process of promotion being the analogy there. So you've got a ticket to enter a promotion selection process, and you have a chance of being selected. So the work starts now, if you like. So how long should you prepare for before a promotion board? Well, I like to deal in absolutes, but the world's more complex and grey than that. So it depends is the answer to that. It depends where you are. You may have been unsuccessful last year, and you've learnt a lot from it, and you've filled those gaps from feedback. You've acted on the feedback from the process. It may be your first time, and you've downloaded a digital toolkit, the promotion masterclass. You've looked at my free YouTube videos, and you really kind of raised your awareness levels, self-awareness levels about what's going on in policing at the moment. You've identified lots of aha or light bulb moments that you were unaware of and that you now know, and so therefore you're much more confident, you're much more able to enter a promotion process and to do well in it. So it really does depend where you are. But what I would say is, anybody, if you're listening to this and you're serious about promotion, I'd say about 3 months. If you've got the luxury of time, 3 months, 12 weeks of hard work, So the first phase of that would be reading, targeted reading. Go wide, go broad. What do you know about policing? Become an authority on it. Get your finger on the pulse about what's happening in policing at the moment, not just locally in your force, but nationally and regionally, and have a look at that as part of your promotion as the first phase. And then we can start talking about things like getting aware of what evidence you've got against the competencies, and then use your background knowledge from the reading that you've built up in that time to add value, if you like, to add in some little golden nuggets that you perhaps wouldn't have done if you hadn't done it. Okay. Some feedback from my customers, I've alluded to them as people who make that commitment, people who often come first, and so some feedback here, a little quote. It's a very hard process, but it's so worth it if you're willing and able to put the time and the work in. So that's some feedback from a customer, which on the face of it is fairly straightforward. It reflects the work that they've put into it. But I always step to the side of that and say, well, look, if you're able to put the time and the work in. So, I like to think I take a human approach to this. Not everybody's got the time. So if you're a mom looking after 2 or 3 kids, or if you've got other commitments in your life, you're perhaps caring for somebody who's not well at the moment. I mean, whatever your other commitments that limit your time to focus for promotion, people have different amounts of time and different chances and opportunities. So some people get supported at work, they get given some protected learning time, others don't, and really that's really down to your force policy, your own approach and grit and determination, and also the amount of time you're prepared to bend, if you like. And when I say bend time, I'm not talking about quantum physics or anything, or space-time travel. I'm talking about people like Dean Karnazes, who was one of the first endurance ultra marathon runners, and when he first started thinking about doing it. He'd just completed a long run, and he worked out he wanted to become a marathon runner. He wanted to do the Badwater Ultra Marathon, I think, which is 100 miles in boiling hot temperatures. But he basically worked out that he had no time with a busy day job and working with a family to bring up. He chose to get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and run a marathon before breakfast every day. Now, yes, he's a Superman. Yes, that's an exceptional approach. But bending time is what a lot of candidates do. Finding time, clearing the decks, clearing your diary. That includes holidays. So often I will speak to people who have a holiday planned, and that's fine. I've also spoken to some people who've cancelled holidays so that they can have the time to go for promotion. Other people like to take away my digital guides on a iPad and read through them and start building up some momentum while they're on holiday, so they can come back and use perhaps the last week of leave to put momentum in. All of this stuff, all of what I'm saying is about what the difference is in climbing the greasy pole. So it's not just about shooting up the rank system or progressing through your career up the rank system. This is about focused work to get to the first stage, halfway up the post, if you like, or the first marker on the post as sergeant, or second marker inspector. So this food for thought, this reflection is just to kind of set the scene really for you, and to kind of support your thinking, and, as I say before, to challenge it where appropriate, and to respectfully provoke it along the way. So entering a promotion selection process, well, there's the first real commitment for you. It can be like purchasing a ticket for a roller coaster ride, and by that I mean, highs of elation. You get through the promotion exam, you get qualified, you're elated, well done. It's a big significant step forward. And then you've got the lows of dejection sometimes, where you're unsuccessful, or you don't get through the paper sift, or you don't get recommended, having had all that elation, and then you don't get even recommended by your supervisor. So it is an emotional roller coaster, but just put that down, park that for a while. It's part of the process. And the experience of many people who embark on this aspect of their career progression is that there are no guarantees. So how are you going to do all this commitment and make this commitment? There's no guarantees. Not everyone succeeds. So resilience and perseverance are called for. And often when I say to people, how are you developing your resilience? Do you have the resilience for this challenge? How do you know? So we'll have a conversation around that. And what do I mean by that? How do you become more resilient as an operational cop? You're going to work every day, you're going from incident to incident, and it's wearing, and you come home and your time off and your rest days are really important to you. Well, it's the same, for other people in other careers, not necessarily as challenging as policing, but people who want to progress their careers, let's just say through banking, as a first thing that comes into my head. Well, they still have to sit up and burn the midnight oil if they want to pass their banking exams. Financial advisors have to do financial exams. So you have to be resilient. You have to have a degree of resilience, and to look at what that means. So in terms of climbing the greasy pole, what does that mean? Well, it can mean doing everything in your power to incrementally improve your ability to be that candidate and to give your best account of yourself on the day, whatever the process. So when we're talking about how to become more resilient as a candidate for someone, and whether you're going for one promotion or whether your career trajectory is that you're listening to this as a constable now, but you ultimately see yourself as a superintendent, chief superintendent by the end of the service, or wherever you've set your marker, if you have, because not everybody sets those markers. But either way, you're going to have to be resilient. So what does that mean? Well, just a quick whistle stop through becoming, trying to become more resilient, accepting change. So, all the stuff I've just been talking about, promotion processes change. You might face one process this year, and if you're not successful, it's a different process next year. It's a bitter pill to swallow, really. But finding ways to become more comfortable with change. Well, leadership for people, performance and change is part of the Sergeant Inspector and Chief Inspector's role. Leadership for change. What does that mean to you? I will be doing some other podcasts on this, and I've certainly done blogs on it and videos. But accepting change, having a healthy attitude to change, the impact upon yourself, but more importantly, as a team leader, as a leader of teams, as a manager, a leader, a supervisor, change is a central ingredient to getting promoted, to all the activities you'll be involved in when you're promoted. And as I say, you'll be leading on this stuff. It's not just something that you have to accept. Find more ways to become comfortable with it. As I say, all of these issues, so leadership for people, performance and change, is covered in my digital downloadable guide. So if you want a kind of 3-course meal on that, and then come out of it a little bit wiser, you can download the digital toolkit and crack on with it. And that includes some really detailed examples of implementing change, leading through change at Sergeant Inspector and Chief Inspector level. Second point, become a continuous learner. You're listening to this podcast for a reason. I hope you learn something from it. It's not my aim to teach you anything. My aim is only to make you think. But become a continuous learner. Learning new skills. What new skills have you learned recently? In the last 12 months? In the last 2 years? What new skills have you learned? Is there a sense of purpose and direction that correlates with and aligns to you getting promoted with that? Have a think about that. Understanding and applying those skills and how they need to change through times of change. So, being resilient is about understanding these aspects. You never stand still. You will never stand still from today listening to this podcast. If you're going to progress your career, you should always be asking yourself, or get someone else to ask you, how are you improving? How are you improving? So, the theme along all of this, really, in terms of becoming more resilient as well, on this progress up the greasy pole, if you choose to take that journey, is taking charge of your own career and your own development. So this podcast is all about that. My products are all about that. So, and there's some individuals just repeat the same things whilst expecting a different outcome. And that's okay if you've got the time to do that. But the right support at the right time can make a significant difference to how you approach a promotion. And here's some feedback to kind of demonstrate that I've received. I've tried for 9 years and I sat 7 boards. This year I fully embraced your masterclass and I passed. So what happened? That's the question I would ask. And I do ask, so what happened? What was different? Often that's around how somebody felt. Did they feel more confident? Did it all just come together on that day? 9 years, just imagine the emotional investment in that and the time and the effort, not necessarily spent away from, family and friends while you're trying to prepare for it and the stress of all that. But 7 promotion boards. So clearly there was a couple of application processes in there as well that were failed. But what happened? What was it about the masterclass that I have recorded? So I've recorded that now and you can download it. It's 4 hours. Just listening to that, reflecting on it, picking up new insights can help add to your own skills and experience and knowledge. So, have a think about that. Resilience is important. Trying to develop your resilience. So reflection is important with that as well. Reframing and thinking about how you see your own skills and your talents and your interests. Reflecting on it, so building some time for reflection and developing new perspectives and raise your self-awareness. And kind of speak to other people. If you it's difficult sometimes to get help and support for promotion, and not everybody you speak to is the right person for that. So have a think about that and where you choose to invest your time and your effort and your energy, because as you can see from feedback like that, doing it right once is probably better than having to go for 9 years. So just have a think on that, have a reflect on that, because different routes exist for promotion. Is not referred to as the greasy pole for nothing. There's a fast track process for those that want to go for it. So constables, have a look at some of the fast track feedback that you see, where I've supported people in going from constable to inspector. So that's one. Some forces have experimented with promoting people from inspector to superintendent, so either doing that, which any chief constable can do, or removing the chief inspector rank to allow that to happen, to experiment, to allow people to jump up a level. It's not unknown, that kind of concept. It happens in the FBI and other places. But just thinking about the different routes that exist, think about, are chief inspectors needed? Well, the answer to that is yes and no. But what do you think about it? What do you think about it, particularly if you're going for inspector or chief inspector? And that opens up some other thoughts around, what are you preparing yourself for? How are you preparing yourself? And what is your, where is your ultimate destination, or where would you like to get to on the greasy pole? So despite all of this, really, promotions still tick over, as does policing. And with some smart hard work, you can achieve promotion success. So, key ingredient in that, to get up that greasy pole, a continuous professional development plan, CPD plan. A big gap. Lots of people I speak to don't have one. I ask what it looks like. It's something that's in their head. It's a discussion they had once with their supervisor, or it's 3 or 4 bullet points that they would like to achieve this year. Well, that's good, because that's something written down and we can work with that. But if you underestimate the importance of a continuous professional development plan, have a look at the blog that I've done called The Killer Question, because it's the killer question on promotion boards, and a lot of people make the mistake of underestimating the importance of CPD, not only their own, but because of the importance of the link to developing other people. So taking responsibility for your own learning and a positive attitude are vital considerations if you want to get to be match fit for any opportunities to climb that greasy pole that may arise. And a clear focus on working towards your goal is required, and solid preparation is a key to success. So, again, you can choose to make that commitment to yourself, and you can do that solid preparation. And if your time is important to you, then why not just download a digital toolkit or a promotion masterclass, or go and have a look first at some of the free YouTube videos in which I cover a lot of these issues, and see whether that's the right approach for you. So, in summary with this one, climbing the greasy pole, if you choose promotion as your future, it's wise to be prepared today. And you can do that at any stage that you choose to do, and to make that decision to do that. And whatever you do decide, I wish you all the best, and I will be back with another podcast in due course.